Last week, in a quiet, high-level meeting room in Tokyo, you had the U.S. Commerce Secretary sitting across from the Mount Rushmore of Japanese industry. The heads of Hitachi, Toshiba, Panasonic, SoftBank, and Mitsubishi Electric. They weren't there to discuss the next revolutionary AI model. They were there to solve a much more fundamental problem: how to keep the current AI models from tripping the entire country's circuit breaker. It sounds almost like a joke. America, the undisputed leader of the global AI revolution, has been building this incredible digital engine, but it's suddenly realizing it forgot to build a big enough gas tank. The tech giants, OpenAI, Google, all of them, are facing an existential crisis. Not a lack of ideas, but a simple brute force lack of electricity. And in that room, Japan quietly agreed to write the check. A $550 billion check. Not just for AI, but for the one thing that AI needs to even exist: raw power. And the shopping list they're funding is staggering. Okay, let's unpack this. I mean, $550 billion, it's not just pocket change. We're not talking about a routine trade deal here, are we?
No, not at all. It's way beyond that. It's really a strategic lifeline. Like you said, it connects, the future of AI, this really advanced digital stuff, to the very heavy physical industry. Old school infrastructure almost. It's a huge bilateral move to basically shore up the foundation the whole digital economy sits on.
Right. Because without power, none of the AI magic happens.
Exactly. And this commitment is probably the clearest signal we've seen that, if you want to lead in tech, you absolutely have to lead in infrastructure first. It's fundamental.
It feels like we're seeing a solution being proposed here for what's become maybe America's biggest 21st century headache: the grid. Is it reliable enough? Can it scale?
That's precisely it. For decades, the focus in the U.S. has been so much on the digital side, the software, the algorithms, maybe while letting the heavy industrial stuff, the grid build out, kind of slide, or at least not keeping pace.
Deferred maintenance, basically, on a national scale.
You could say that. And now AI, with its just unforgiving exponential power demand, is forcing this massive reckoning. Suddenly, you need hundreds of billions of dollars now to catch up.
And the engine driving this whole thing, it's the data centers, right? The hyperscalers, Google, Microsoft, AWS.
Absolutely. They're the physical homes for AI. And their appetite for electricity it's off the charts. The estimates we're seeing are genuinely alarming.
I saw one suggesting, 9% of total U.S. electricity demand by 2035? Just for data centers.
That's the number floating around. And 9%. To give you some context, that's roughly a fourfold jump from where we were in 2023.
Wow. 4 times the power draw. What is that, about 12 years?
Just over a decade, yeah. Think about that rate of growth. It really lays bare how fragile the current grid is in some ways. It just wasn't designed for that kind of acceleration or for these huge concentrated loads that run constantly.
I read something fascinating about this, the real-world impact. In Northern Virginia, data center alley.
Right, the epicenter.
Exactly. Major tech companies are apparently buying up massive tracts of farmland. Not for more data centers necessarily, but just to get land near the big power lines.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Spending huge amounts just to minimize the distance the power has to travel.
Because the local utilities literally can't guarantee they can build new transmission lines fast enough to connect them otherwise. That, to me, says more than any projection about how urgent this power crunch actually is.
That's a perfect illustration. It nails the core of this existential crisis, as the opening called it. We talk about AI in these sort of futuristic, abstract terms.
Right, like just code floating in the cloud.
Exactly. But the immediate break on progress isn't some complex algorithm problem. It's basic physics. It's just watts, sheer volume of electricity.
So let's paint that picture, the scenario that leads to Japan writing this enormous check.
Okay, yeah. Imagine you're the CEO of some hot AI startup. You've just landed, say, $1 billion in VC funding. You've hired the smartest PhDs out there. Your model, it could revolutionize drug discovery maybe, or material science. You're ready to hit go on training.
You're right on the edge of that huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
Billions are on the line.
Precisely. And then your cloud provider, or whoever's hosting your servers, comes back and says, look, we've got the chips, the network's ready, but we're power constrained in Ashburn, or wherever their main hub is.
Ouch.
Yeah. Your whole multi-billion-dollar enterprise just grinds to a halt. Not because of code, not because of money, but because the local power company physically can't build a new substation or get a new power plant online fast enough to feed your servers.
That physical reality just slams the brakes on the digital.
Dead in its tracks. And Japan, seeing this massive bottleneck forming in the U.S., well, they've basically offered to be the strategic plumber, to build the pipes needed to keep the American AI engine fueled up.
So by stepping in, building the gas station, as it were, Japan ensures it stays deeply involved in, arguably, the most valuable economic sector globally right now. It's not just investing, it's laying foundations.
It's definitely foundation building. And it's not just a vague promise either. When you dig into the numbers, past that big $550 billion headline figure, well, we see detailed plans. They've accounted for about $393.5 billion across 21 specific projects already. And the lion's share of that.
Let me guess. Energy.
You got it. Up to $332 billion earmarked specifically for critical energy infrastructure. It's like a very specific, very heavy-duty shopping list, all designed to unlock that AI capacity.
Okay, before we dive deep into that $332 billion energy piece, which is huge, let's quickly touch on the investments aimed directly at the AI ecosystem itself. Because it's not all just about power plants miles away, right? Some of this money is for stuff inside the data centers.
Correct. That's important too. This addresses the immediate, minute-by-minute needs within those AI facilities. For example, Mitsubishi Electric. They're committing up to $30 billion.
And what are they supplying?
Power station systems, yes, but also highly specialized equipment designed specifically for data centers. This isn't your standard off-the-shelf utility gear. It's stuff built to handle massive, often spiky power loads with incredible precision.
And protecting the actual silicon, the chips, is a big part of that, I imagine?
Oh, absolutely vital. You've got companies like TDK stepping up. They're looking at up to $25 billion for advanced electronic components, power modules, things like multi-layer ceramic capacitors, specialized filters.
Hey, those sound technical. Why are they so crucial?
They perform this really critical, often overlooked job. They basically condition and stabilize the huge amounts of power right before it hits the semiconductor chips. Think of it like filtering water before you drink it.
Okay.
Those AI chips are incredibly sensitive, especially running flat out during training. They need ultra clean, stable power. Without it, they can fail or just run way less efficiently. These components ensure that power quality.
So without these TDK components, you risk
what?
Data centers literally melting down or just crashing constantly.
You risk poor performance, inefficiency, and potentially, hardware failure due to poor power quality, as engineers call it. It's about reliability at the micro level.
Got it. And then there's the data side. You need the pipes for the data, too.
Right. Can't forget that. All this processing generates unbelievable amounts of data that needs to move fast. So Fujikura is committing up to $20 billion, advanced optical fiber cables, essentially the digital backbone connecting these hyperscale centers together and to the world. The physical network has to be just as robust as the power supply feeding it.
Okay, so that covers the direct AI support systems. Now let's tackle the really big one, that potential $332 billion for the core energy infrastructure, the grid itself.
Yeah, this is the heavyweight part of the deal. We're talking the absolute backbone. New power plants, huge substations to manage voltage, and the massive transmission lines to move electricity over long distances.
And the scope covers everything, building it, running it.
It seems so. The commitment mentions covering the full life cycle, the engineering design, procuring all the materials and equipment, the actual construction, and then the ongoing maintenance too. It's soup to nuts.
This is where Japanese capital really meets American scale, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because building grid infrastructure, especially quickly, is notoriously difficult in the U.S.
Oh, it's incredibly challenging. You've got regulatory hurdles that can take years, complex permitting, long construction timelines, NIMB-ism, and just sourcing the sheer amount of specialized equipment needed is tough.
So how does this investment try to overcome that?
By bringing in the big guns on the U.S. side, the plan names American engineering giants like Bechtel and Kiewit as partners specifically for building these critical power plants, substations, and transmission lines.
Bechtel, they have a reputation for handling massive, complex, mission-critical projects globally, right? What does their involvement signal here?
It signals speed and an industrialized approach, hopefully. Bechtel and Kiewit aren't boutique firms. They're masters of large-scale project management and execution. Their involvement suggests a plan to push these projects through faster than the usual, often decades-long timelines we see with some utility build-outs.
So they're the ones meant to actually turn that $332 billion into steel, concrete, and generating capacity quickly.
They're the tip of the spear for the construction phase, exactly. You need that execution capability before you can even think about powering up more AI. They have to build the enabling infrastructure first.
And the plan seems to involve other specialized players, too. I saw Intra1 Energy mentioned.
Right. They're involved in supplying large-scale baseload power infrastructure. And baseload is absolutely key here.
Remind us what baseload power is again.
It's the minimum level of electricity needed around the clock. The constant, steady power supply that's always there, regardless of whether the sun's shining or the wind's blowing. AI data centers are basically perfect examples of huge, constant baseload consumers. They never sleep.
Okay, makes sense. And interestingly, SoftBank Group is involved too. They're usually known more for tech investing.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. They're apparently involved in the design, procurement, and even the ongoing maintenance of this large-scale power infrastructure. Their name being attached to that big $332 billion potential pot suggests maybe a focus on long-term operational efficiency, not just funding the initial construction.
And getting the fuel to these power plants is also part of the plan. Kinder Morgan's name popped up.
Yes, they're collaborating on natural gas transmission and related power infrastructure services. That highlights a key reality. A lot of this new fast-to-build generation capacity, at least initially, is likely going to rely on natural gas.
Which needs pipelines.
Which needs a robust, efficient pipeline network to deliver the fuel reliably. So that piece is crucial too.
Okay, let's get into the real nuts and bolts, the actual equipment. GE Vernova is supplying large-scale power gear.
Yep. Up to $25 billion worth. We're talking massive gas turbines, steam turbines, huge generators, grid stabilization systems, the core components of modern power plants.
And you mentioned earlier, transformers.
Yeah.
That they're a huge bottleneck.
Oh, notorious. Transformers are arguably the biggest physical choke point in expanding the grid quickly.
Why is that? They just step voltage up or down, right?
Yeah.
Sounds simple enough?
The principle is simple, but the execution is anything but. These things are monumental pieces of engineering. We're talking about units the size of a small house, weighing hundreds of tons.
Okay, not small.
And they're not mass-produced like cars. Each large transformer is often custom designed for a specific substation's needs. The manufacturing is incredibly complex, massive laminated steel cores, miles of precisely wound copper wiring, specialized insulating oil, all assembled in huge specialized factories.
Requiring a very specific skill set, I imagine.
Highly specialized labor, yes. And there just aren't that many factories globally that can build the really big ones. Plus, after they're built, they need extensive, rigorous testing. If a key component fails, or you just need a new one...
Wait time is long?
The lead time for a large power transformer can easily be 2, 3, even 4 years right now. Demand is just vastly outstripping the limited global manufacturing capacity.
So if you need, say, 100 new substations to power all these planned data centers, the transformer delivery schedule basically dictates the entire timeline.
Pretty much. You can build the substation foundations, run the cables, but if you can't get the transformer, nothing gets energized. It's the critical path item.
And that's where Toshiba comes in.
Exactly. Toshiba's commitment, also up to $25 billion, is focused on electrical power modules, critically, transformers, and other substation equipment. They're directly targeting this known bottleneck.
And Hitachi, too, right? They're looking at expanding production in the U.S.
Yes, that's a really important piece. Hitachi is exploring a further expansion of its U.S. production capacity for transformers and high-voltage gear. This builds on a $1 billion investment they'd already announced back in, I think it was September 2025, conceptually.
So not just importing them, but building more capacity stateside.
Precisely. It's a deliberate strategy to try and localize the manufacturing of these absolutely critical, long lead time components within the U.S. The goal is to shorten those lead times and just physically make more of them available faster to accelerate the whole grid build-out.
That feels central to this whole deal.
Right.
The recognition that maybe the U.S. let some of this heavy industrial manufacturing capacity wither.
Or just didn't keep pace with soaring global demand.
Right. And now, to meet the AI power challenge, it needs this kind of major international partnership to bring that manufacturing muscle back, or at least supplement it significantly, which I guess leads us nicely into the future of power generation. Advanced nuclear.
Yes, this is maybe the most forward-looking and potentially game-changing part of the entire investment. There's this dual commitment to advanced nuclear, representing two huge parallel bets on the future of baseload power, each one potentially worth up to $100 billion.
Okay, $200 billion nuclear efforts. Let's start with the one getting a lot of buzz. Small modular reactors, SMRs. This is the GE Vernova and Hitachi collaboration.
That's right. They're focusing on the BWRX-300, which is a specific type of light water SMR design. And this investment, potentially up to $100 billion, aims to accelerate that whole technology.
How is it such a paradigm shift? Nuclear power isn't new?
Traditional nuclear power isn't, no. But the way we've built it historically involved these absolutely massive, one-off, custom-built concrete behemoths. Think Bechtel in Georgia. Years, often decades, to build. Billions, often tens of billions, in cost, frequently over budget and behind schedule.
Right, the mega projects.
Exactly. SMRs completely flip the script on the industrial approach. The reactors themselves are, as the name suggests, small. They're based on simplified designs, and critically, they're designed to be factory-built.
So like building cars on an assembly line instead of building a skyscraper on site.
That's the core idea. It shifts the focus from a massive bespoke construction project to more of a standardized manufacturing process. You build the reactor modules, the components, in a controlled factory setting.
Better quality control, maybe faster production?
Potentially, yes. Standardization, speed, manufacturing resilience, that's the goal. Then you ship these modules to the power plant site and assemble them. It creates totally different supply chains, logistics. It's about high-volume manufacturing engineering, not just massive civil works.
And safety. That's always the big question with nuclear.
SMR designs, including the BWRX-300, often incorporate advanced passive safety systems. These rely on natural forces, think gravity, natural convection, pressure differences to cool the reactor or shut it down in an emergency, rather than relying on active components like pumps or external power sources that could fail.
Okay, that sounds like a significant improvement. And Japan isn't just providing money here, they're bringing expertise.
Deep expertise. Hitachi, in particular, is leveraging its decades of experience and its established high-quality domestic supply chains in Japan. The plan is for them to supply critical, reliable reactor components for the early SMR projects built using this investment.
They have a track record already.
They're already involved in projects like the Darlington SMR project up in Canada. They're demonstrating their ability to deliver these key components reliably for the first-of-a-kind units. So this Japanese investment isn't just cash, it's industrial know-how that helps de-risk and speed up the whole SMR rollout in the U.S.
Okay, so SMRs are the sort of agile, factory-built future. But there's another $100 billion pot for large-scale nuclear, too.
Yes, that's the other pillar. This targets Westinghouse's AP1000 reactors, again with potential investment up to $100 billion.
And the AP1000 is different how?
It's a much larger, more traditional, though still advanced, pressurized water reactor design. It's already proven technology AP1000s are currently operating, including at Plant Bechtel. This represents the established solution for generating massive amounts of centralized baseload power.
So it's like hedging bets. SMRs for potentially faster, localized deployment, and AP1000s for big, proven power blocks.
That seems to be the strategy. And here, other Japanese industrial giants like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Toshiba Corp are reportedly considering joining this AP1000 investment effort. It shows broad Japanese industrial backing for revitalizing U.S. nuclear capacity across different scales.
And this massive private Japanese investment in nuclear, it's happening alongside a big push from the U.S. government itself, right?
Exactly. It's almost perfectly timed. Just as this Japan deal was announced, the U.S. government unveiled its own, separate but related, $80 billion agreement. This one involves Westinghouse, the uranium supplier Cameco, and Brookfield Asset Management.
And that's specifically to build more AP1000s in the U.S.
That's the goal. The government agreement is explicitly aimed at facilitating the construction of new AP1000 units domestically. They estimate it could create or sustain something like 45,000 manufacturing and engineering jobs across dozens of states.
So how do these two huge pots of money, the private Japanese investment and the U.S. government deal, work together?
They seem very synergistic. The U.S. government's $80 billion provides a huge domestic demand signal. It says, we want these reactors built here, and provides significant financial backing and political support. It's partly an industrial policy move, a jobs program.
Okay, and the Japanese investment?
The Japanese capital, potentially up to $100 billion for AP1000s plus the SMR funding, acts like supplementary rocket fuel. It provides more private capital, brings in additional industrial expertise, and crucially helps ensure the supply chain, that the factories making the pumps, valves, pressure vessels, the specialized materials can actually scale up to meet that demand signal created by the government.
So the U.S. government creates the market demand, and the Japanese investment helps ensure the industrial capacity exists to fulfill it.
That's a good way to look at it. The U.S. deal is the strategic political push. The Japanese deal helps provide the industrial horsepower for execution.
And the U.S. government isn't just giving away that $80 billion, are they? I read something about them taking a stake.
No, it's structured more like a venture capital investment, which is fascinating. They've set up a participation interest. Basically, the government gets 20% of any cash payouts Westinghouse makes above a certain threshold, $17.5 billion, once the reactors are built and final investment decisions are locked in.
So the government shares in the potential upside.
Exactly. And they might even participate if Westinghouse eventually goes public again with an IPO. It's not just a loan or a grant. The U.S. government is essentially taking an equity-like stake in the hoped-for resurgence of its own heavy nuclear industry.
Okay, let's tie this huge nuclear investment back to the original problem. Geopolitics, energy security, AI leadership. How does building more nuclear plants, especially these potentially localized SMRs, make the U.S. more secure?
It gets right to the heart of maintaining U.S. tech leadership in this century. One of the big vulnerabilities of the current U.S. grid is, as we discussed, its aging infrastructure, but also its centralization, and critically, its reliance on fuel sources that can be affected by global politics and price volatility.
You mean like natural gas prices spiking because of conflict somewhere?
Precisely. Or disruptions to oil shipments or even uranium supply chain issues if relations sour with a key supplier nation. If your massive AI data center campus relies primarily on a natural gas plant and the price of gas suddenly triples due to geopolitics,
the cost of running your AI models skyrockets. Or worse, you face fuel shortages.
Right. Your AI dominance becomes vulnerable to things happening halfway around the world. Nuclear power, especially once built, offers very stable, predictable electricity costs, largely insulated from fossil fuel price swings. And SMRs take it a step further.
How so?
By enabling more localized power generation. Instead of relying solely on massive plants feeding power over hundreds of miles of vulnerable transmission lines, you could potentially place SMRs closer to large industrial loads, like data center clusters. This decentralization makes the grid inherently more resilient.
Less vulnerable to large cascading blackouts if one major line goes down.
Exactly. And less vulnerable to those global fuel market shocks. You're creating stable, localized power islands. This Japanese investment, by funding both large nuclear and SMRs, is effectively helping to harden the U.S. domestic grid against external geopolitical or economic shocks.
So it's energy security translating directly into technological security for the AI era.
That's the strategic logic, making the U.S. technological base inherently more robust and insulated. It's a foundational play for maintaining leadership in an era where data and the power to process it is paramount.
That really reframes this whole $550 billion deal, doesn't it? It's not just Japan helping the U.S. solve a power problem.
Right.
It's Japan investing heavily in the fundamental security and resilience that its main ally needs to stay ahead technologically and economically.
And that strategic thinking clearly extends way beyond just building power plants. When you look at the other parts of this investment package, it's a comprehensive plan to bolster the entire U.S. industrial supply chain needed for the future economy. It goes right down to the raw materials.
Okay, let's talk about that materials base. There's up to $5 billion earmarked for critical minerals initiatives in the U.S. What are they targeting?
They're targeting specific strategic gaps in U.S. domestic capacity. For instance, $2 billion is slated for a new copper smelting and refining facility, likely in the western U.S.
Why copper specifically?
Copper is absolutely fundamental. You can't have large-scale power transmission or build data centers or electric vehicles or almost any advanced electronics without massive amounts of copper wiring and components. Boosting domestic smelting capacity reduces reliance on global supply chains for this utterly essential metal.
Makes sense. And they're looking at agriculture, too. $3 billion for fertilizer.
Yes, for an ammonia and urea fertilizer facility, that shores up agricultural supply chains, which is critical in itself. Plus, ammonia production is often linked to potential pathways for clean hydrogen production in the future, another energy angle.
And batteries.
Definitely. There's $350 million committed for a lithium iron phosphate LFP production facility. LFP is a key cathode material for certain types of lithium-ion batteries, especially those used in grid storage and some EVs. This investment helps build out the domestic battery supply chain,
which is vital for grid stability with more renewables and for data center backup power.
Absolutely. Energy storage is becoming just as critical as generation itself for managing the grid and ensuring that constant, reliable power AI needs.
Okay, so we've got raw materials covered. What about moving up the value chain to more advanced components?
That's a big focus, too. Murata Manufacturing, another Japanese giant, is investing up to $15 billion.
To make what?
To produce advanced electronic components, specifically things like those multi-layer ceramic capacitors, MLCCs, and filters we talked about earlier being crucial for power quality inside data centers.
So the really tiny, complex bits that are essential for high-performance electronics.
Exactly. These are components where perhaps U.S. domestic production hasn't kept pace or was offshored. Japan is strategically investing to build that capacity back up stateside, targeting components vital for next-gen chips used in AI, 5G, automotive, etc.
It really feels like Japan is systematically identifying critical industrial capabilities the U.S. might be lacking and offering to help build them.
That seems to be a core theme. And Panasonic fits that mold, too. They're investing up to $15 billion. Supplying energy storage systems, ESS, think grid-scale batteries and other electronic devices. Again, hitting that critical need for grid balancing and reliable backup power for data centers and other crucial infrastructure. Ensuring the lights and the AI models don't go out when the grid hulkers.
Beyond these high-tech components, I noticed some investments in more general manufacturing and logistics as well.
Yes, it's quite broad. There's $600 million dedicated to upgrading ports and waterways, particularly in the southern U.S.
What's the strategic goal there?
The specific mention is facilitating U.S. crude oil exports, so it enhances America's role as an energy exporter, which has its own geopolitical leverage. But more broadly, better ports just facilitate all kinds of industrial trade and movement of goods.
And there was one really specific, almost niche manufacturing investment that caught my eye. $500 million for diamond grit.
Yeah, high-pressure, high-temperature diamond grit manufacturing. It sounds niche, but it shows just how deep this industrial strategy goes, from nuclear reactors down to microscopic materials.
What's industrial diamond grit used for?
It's absolutely fundamental for modern high-precision industrial processes. Cutting, drilling, grinding, polishing of very hard materials. It's essential for making the machine tools that build everything else, from jet engine components to the equipment used in semiconductor fabs.
So securing a domestic source for this high-performance material underpins a lot of other advanced manufacturing sectors.
Exactly. It's another example of securing a foundational industrial input.
Okay, so we have power generation, grid infrastructure, critical minerals, advanced components, logistics. What ties all these industrial pieces together at a higher level?
That would be the overarching framework for cooperation. The two nations signed a Memorandum of Cooperation, the MOC, for something called the U.S.-Japan Technology Prosperity Deal.
So moving beyond just the money and the projects into actual policy and collaboration.
Right. This MOC is the strategic umbrella. It commits both countries to things like accelerating AI adoption in constructive ways, developing pro-innovation AI policy frameworks that hopefully align, and promoting the export of the technologies that result from all this investment.
And the scope of collaboration mentioned is incredibly broad.
It really is. It covers almost every key future tech area. Enhancing research security, pushing forward on 6G wireless technology, quantum information science, fusion energy R&D, making biotechnology supply chains more resilient. Even space collaboration is in there. They're even setting up working groups to align on technical standards and requirements. Apparently, sharing U.S. know-how to help Japan develop its own secure, sovereign cloud capabilities is part of that too, which benefits Japan's AI ambitions.
And as you touched on earlier, this deep technological and industrial alliance has a very clear defense dimension too. It's not just about economics.
Absolutely not. The announcements explicitly included a U.S. commitment to speed up deliveries of AMRAAMs. Those are advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles for Japan's fleet of F-35 fighter jets.
Which directly boosts Japan's defense capabilities.
And strengthens deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. It's a clear reminder that the foundation for projecting military strength and maintaining technological superiority rests, in large part, on having a secure, robust, technologically advanced industrial base. The power coming from those new turbines and reactors, funded partly by Japan, directly enables the geopolitical strength of the alliance.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this whole deep dive, this $550 billion package. It's really not just a simple investment. It feels much more like a foundational geopolitical and industrial strategy playing out.
I think that's the right way to frame it. Japan is essentially bankrolling the physical capacity, the copper, the steel, the transformers, the nuclear plants, the sheer wattage that the U.S. has suddenly realized it desperately needs to sustain its global dominance in AI, primarily because its own grid infrastructure couldn't keep up with the demand explosion.
We've walked through the drivers, that incredible fourfold demand surge expected from data centers. We've looked at the emergency response, that massive $332 billion potential injection into the energy grid.
Right. And the strategic bets on the future of power, that two-pronged nuclear approach, backing both the proven large-scale AP1000s and the potentially revolutionary factory-built SMRs.
And then layered on top of that, this wide array of investments aimed at shoring up the entire supporting ecosystem, critical minerals, advanced components, manufacturing, logistics, all wrapped up in a framework of deeper tech and defense cooperation.
It covers the full stack, from raw materials to geopolitical strategy.
You know, the historical irony here is pretty staggering when you think about it. Japan, a nation that really not that long ago was the undisputed world leader in cutting-edge consumer electronics, Sony Walkmans, Panasonic TVs.
Absolutely dominant in that era.
Right. And now that same nation is stepping in to fund and provide the basic heavy industrial capacity, the steel, the concrete, the transformers, the raw power that the current global technology leader, the U.S., finds itself desperately needing to power its own digital future.
It's a fascinating reversal in some ways. It really underscores that the future of AI, as advanced as the algorithms are, doesn't just run on code. At the end of the day, it runs on physics. It runs on power.